Hey Ringside crew. Welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. And now here's your host, Joe, Panther the Third.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to another episode of the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. I am your host, Joe Panther the Third, and man, it's so fun this Women's Wrestling Month. I've loved giving flowers to so many people from all the way to Australia, my buddy Savannah Summers, her buddy Riley, but now I have a young lady that represents a whole lot of things in a whole lot of places, in a place that has a lot of history behind it. Let's give a warm Dudes at Ringside welcome to Christi Jaynes. Welcome, Christi.
Hello.
So, my first question for you, Christi, what made you get into this crazy world of professional wrestling?
So, I think it's been 10 years. I started in 2015 training, and I almost died before that. I was in the ICU. And my mom came to me and was like, hey, you've done everything you're supposed to do. Like, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, I don't know. And she was like, well, you've always loved sports and you loved acting. And I was like, yeah. So one day I just Googled, when I got released from the hospital, I Googled professional wrestling. And I found 3 different locations. I was living in Texas at the time. I found 3 different locations. One of them wanted way too much money. Another one wanted me to try out for them. And they also wanted a ton of money just for the tryout. And then the third one didn't get back to me until 4 days later. And this old gentleman calls me on the phone at like 10 o'clock at night, and he's like asking me all these questions, and he goes, okay, cool. Can you come in at like 11:30 at night? And he gives me this address. Me knowing nothing about Texas, I drive to the address at 11:30 at night because that's totally normal, right? In wrestling it is. But like for a normal person, it's not. So I drive to like this very sketchy part of Pflugerville, Texas. No one knows where that is. And there's a gas station out the front. There's like people selling crack or whatever, man. Drugs and money are being exchanged. And my GPS is telling me to go down like this back alley. So I do it. And I start hearing like banging, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't know where this is taking me. And they're like garage, like just garages, right? That people store stuff in. Mm. And so I get to this one garage and there's a ring in the middle. There's a bunch of people in there and they're like, and it's just banging. And I like get out of the car, me and my cowboy boots. And I go in there and I met George DeLaza, and he ran America's Academy of Pro Wrestling. He is a luchador. So I didn't know at the time. So I go in there and I talk to him, and he told me, this is how much it is a month. And I paid that a month. And he's like, but you got to do one thing. You got to go out there and convince all these people that you're somebody. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, really? Just like that? You don't need time? Like, no, we'll go do it right now. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I had no idea what I was going to say, by the way. I was like, well, we're going to improv. So he comes out. He's all, hey, you guys. He talks like that. Or he did. He goes, hey, you guys. There's this wonderful young lady here. And, well, I'm going to let her introduce herself. So go on. And I'm like, I just sat there and I was standing and they were sitting on the ring apron. Here's a few big names that were there, though. Ricky Starks, Alley Catch. She was Alley Cat at the time, right? ACH. Steve Areno. He was there. There was a few other people that have made appearances on AEW that have been signed with WWE, but at the time we're all training, or they were training. I was coming in, and I'm looking around, and I go, hey. I didn't say hey. I went, hello, my name's Christi Jaynes. I am a talent scout for WWE. I am going around Texas, and I'm trying to find some wrestlers to come in and do a tryout. So this was, when I said those words, I had no idea at the time that WWE actually held tryouts and actually had talent scouts. I had no idea. I was totally talking out of my butt, like no clue, right? So I said this and everyone's like, oh yeah. And then Ricky goes, because Ricky knows everyone at the Fed, like everyone, like all of his friends were there already, like everyone. ACH hadn't gone there yet, but like he knew everyone. And he went, so at first he was like, yeah. And then he went, wait a minute, like, no, right? And then George goes, she's kidding. Christi's brand new. She's going to be training with us. And everyone was like, what the hell? She had us. So, yeah, that was my first, but I trained for a whole year with George. After 3 months of starting to train with George, I went to Mexico, to Monterrey, which is the birthplace of Lucha Libre. I went and trained there with Tsunami, a few other people, the Garza Dynasty. I trained with all of them at the time. Garza Jr. was known as Ultimate Ninja. Most people don't know this. He's like at WWE, right? So there's that. There was Garza, and then there was Ultimate Ninja. They're cousins at WWE. Now they do the tag team there. So I trained with them. Good times too. I worked for their family's promotion. And then they took me so Conan had left AAA, went to the Crash. They took me to the Crash. Conan loved me. I stuck with the Crash. Conan took me to AAA. I went to Japan my first year of training. Like I didn't even finish training and I was everywhere already. I caught on to it really quick. I dedicated everything to it. Everything. And then when I was back in Texas, I would train with Ricky and Jay Sirius or Jojo Bravo. A lot of people on the indies know who Jojo is. He is amazing. Just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Just great. He comes up with these, he's so innovative. He's so creative. And he's great at the storytelling. And that's kind of what like drew me towards wrestling, because it was a mixture of the acrobatics and theatrics, and it was mixed into one, right? So it was great. It was really good. I loved it. So they trained me. And then I went to Stardom. I was the first Brazilian at Stardom. I went back again for a second tour. Then I went to WWE. I had my tryout and stuff. And then I went to AEW and then I went to NWA. But I've wrestled at like just about every single promotion you can think of, right? I was the AAW Pro Women's Champion, which I'm so honored that I was able to hold that title. Like, it's an amazing company. They have a lot of great people that have come from there. SWE was running during COVID when no other promotions were running. Everything was shut down. I was their women's champion for a long time. They were great. I wrestled for the NWA when I first started. When a lot of people don't remember who owned it. So when right before Billy bought it, there was this gentleman that was a lawyer that pretty much scammed the NWA and got it. Like,
wow.
he sued him and won the NWA. He was a really cool guy. I guess outside of that, he was super cool. But because of him, I was able to wrestle for them when I was just coming up. And that is how I met Jazz, the phenomenal Jazz, like the first WWE women's champion, the first Black woman to hold the women's champion. Like, she's a legend, you know, like she's a true badass at ECW, like just absolutely amazing. And through her, I have never met anyone in wrestling as caring as Jazz is. She is amazing, and she did so much for my career, like so much. And we all know how shitty wrestling can be, the politics of wrestling. We all know if like you unintentionally say something and somebody gets their feelbads hurt, like they'll try to cancel you and blackball you for that. Like, people don't want to take accountability for their actions. There's a whole bunch of drama with wrestling, right? And Jazz is very drama-free. And it was interesting because Jazz always had my back through everything. And she taught me how to be aggressive in wrestling, right? Like, she taught me that. The first time I met her, I gave her very first match back. So it was me and Amber O'Neal. We were at the Lodge in Sherman, Texas. This was back when NWA had some territories, right? Then Billy took over, territories went away, and now they're slowly coming back with Billy, right? But at this time, they still had territories. The NWA in Sherman, Texas was one of them. We wrestled at the Elks Lodge. Amber O'Neal had just broken it off with her husband that went to WWE. She was losing the NWA title to Jazz. It was her first match back. She hadn't taken a bump in the ring since she retired. And she came back and she looked at me and she was like, okay. She's like, so you do lucha, huh? She's like, well, girl, you're going to have to slow down. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'll do whatever. And I was so excited to meet her. I was like, oh, can I like take this and this? Can we do Trish Stratus with the chair and like from this and that? And she was like, calm down, girlfriend. You're like crawling. She's like, we are not walking yet with you. You're crawling. I'm like, oh, okay. I was just so excited, right? But she taught me so much. And then when she won the belt, we had another match after that. And it was a one-on-one. And it was great. Like, it was amazing. And she was great. Her and I became like friends, like instantly from that. She has brought me into every single promotion she has worked at. She has trained me without asking anything from me. She's even put me up so I could train with her. Like she is more than just a wrestler. She is amazing. Like what I think the NWA is so lucky to have her as their women's trainer. It's crazy. She has so much knowledge. She's just amazing. And she keeps our locker room here at the NWA completely drama free. Like whenever anyone starts talking or there's any rumors going around, she squashes it all. She's like, nope, not here. We're not doing that. Don't care. Like she's so great. So the locker room, I know a lot of promotions say their locker room is drama free. Our locker room here is super drama free. Like everyone is welcome. Doesn't matter what level of experience you have. We're all here to help people, right? Like, and Jazz is she is such a great leader.
Awesome. That's so cool to hear that, like someone like Jazz that has like so much experience in the business, and now she's giving you guys in the NWA like so much advice. So like what kind of advice does Jazz give you to put like into your character or like your wrestling style?
So when Jazz brought me to the NWA, she was like, so this is old school wrestling, Christi, because I was wrestling a ton in Mexico right before I came to the NWA. And she was like, you need to slow down. You can't do all your high flying stuff. You got to leave the acrobatics, for the indies. This is old school. Tone it down. And so it was really hard for me a lot of lucha. It's hard for us to like tone it down, right? Because I'm not a grappler. Like lucha is grappling and stuff, but I did more of the high flying stuff. I did gymnastics when I was younger, so I'm very acrobatic. Like that's I have that history. So it was a lot of, stay grounded and stuff. And then actually, so when they came to me with CJ, with the magician's assistant, right? I was like, no, I'm Christi Jaynes. I am the Brazilian Wonder Woman.
I was about to say that. Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like a feminist. I'm here for the woman. Like, let's go. And now you want me to assist a man? Like, be submissive? What is this? Right? So I like talk to Jazz and she's like, let's just see where it goes. They're still going to use you to wrestle and like all this stuff. And I was like, fine. And I talked to Jake and I never met him before. Magic Jake DeMoss, never met him before, talked to him on the phone. And I was a little hesitant and I think he could feel it. Right. Because when I don't want to do something, I'm very stubborn and I like dig my heels in and I'm like, no, I'm like a little kid. I'm like, I sit here and pout. And he was like, and so he started to talk to me and I was like, oh my gosh, like he was talking about character creation, like my language. I love character creation. I love that. I love backstories. I love vignettes. I love like, let's build it up and not just have it be a 3-week thing and then it's over and you go on to the next. Like, no, this was like longevity was there and like, it was great. So I got really excited about it and I show up and they go, all you're going to do is stand there and go, ta-da. And I go,
geez.
What?
You no.
Yeah. And I went, huh? And they're like, yeah. And so before I came, I did a lot of research on like what a magician's assistant from the 1920s wore and like what trapeze, carnival trapeze women wore and like stuff like that. So I had gear made especially for this so I could wrestle in it. So all the gear you see me wearing out there, I can actually wrestle in that with no wardrobe. throat malfunctions. Because I thought that's what I was going to be doing, right? Yeah. And because that's what they told me. They're like, oh, you're still going to wrestle, right? I didn't realize this was a long, like, it's a long storyline. It's not like AEW where the storyline goes on for like 3 weeks or 6 months and then the next, right? It's like real planting little seeds along the way. So I went, and I remember after that first day, because they were trying to help me, right? People were trying to give me advice on how to be a magician's assistant. And they were pretty much, you just have to submit to Jake, which goes against everything that the Brazilian Wonder Woman is. Like, everything. And I was like, oh my gosh. So after the first day, I was like crying, and then literally tears to Jazz. No one deserves my tears except for Jazz. So I was like crying to Jazz. I'm like, I have to be like submissive and like, oh my gosh, what are my fans gonna think? And right, like all this stuff. And she's like, Christi, wrestling is an art. You don't go to the movies and you don't see Tom Cruise killing 4 people, and after the movie's over go, hey, he needs to go to jail because he killed 4 people, right? He's playing a character. Yeah. That's what it is. Like, you're just this character here, and you know, you don't, she's like, they told you you're going to wrestle, you're going to wrestle, but there's a story. And you have to play out that story, right? And I was like, right, it's only the first day, okay. And then I kept coming back, and I kept doing the ta-da, right? And then I do like little goofy spots, and I'd always ask my agent, like, what's behind this spot? Like, give me my why. Why am I doing this, right? And they would be like, oh, you hate Jake. You hate him. You despise him. You think he's dumb. I'm like, really? That's why I'm doing it? Yeah. And then when Billy found out I'm really from Brazil and I actually speak Portuguese, Billy was like, you only speak Portuguese to Jake. Nothing else. Oh, so when you see me do my promos, it's all in Portuguese. There's no English, except for one promo I did where Alexa taught me how to speak English, and I talk just like Alexa. Oh, God. So it's great. So anyway, so she was like, just see how it goes. And I was like, okay. And then Pat was always my agent, and he was the creative genius. I'm going to use that word. He is super, like, now I understand, right? And he would always tell me, pretend like you're on The Price is Right. A new car, right? And he's like, and that's what you do, Christi, a new car, like all the time. So right before I'd go out, he would be like, a new car. And we'd sit there and he'd say it like 5 or 10 times until I had to go through the curtain, right? Because he was trying to drill it into me. And then I remember after 6 months of doing it, I went back to Jazz, and I was still crying. And I was like, Jazz, like, it's hard because the girls here wrestle me outside of NWA. Yeah. And they're like, you're such a great wrestler. Why aren't they using you? Like, why are they bringing in these other girls when they have like great homegrown talent right here? And I'm like, I don't know. So I told Jazz, it's making it harder for me, because everyone is like, why aren't you wrestling? Why aren't you wrestling? Because then I'm like, yeah, why am I not wrestling? Right? Sorry, I'm really animated. I'm Brazilian, okay. Italian. So we're like,
there you go. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we talk with our hands. So, you know, I went through the whole thing, and I was like, sorry. I go through the whole thing with her, and she's like, Christi, just trust Pat. He knows exactly what he's doing, and you're getting paid to be here, and you wrestle like 3 times a week anyways. So this is like a break for you, right? This is a break. You don't have to think. You can just go out there and do exactly what they tell you to do. So then when she told me that, I was like, okay, it's like a break. I'm just going to take in as much as I can. There's really great talent here that can give me great advice and help me with character work. And at the same time, I was transitioning into stunts and movies.
Wow.
So I had to build that acting and that character work, right? It was just like I would if I was at acting class. So I sat there and I like, okay, what can I do to make this better? Like, what tricks can I do to make this better? I'm like, what do magicians do? I'm like, oh, they have the never ending scarf. So I had our seamstress, love him to death. He is so great. Rick, amazing. He made me scarves, magician scarves, right? So
That's
I
cool.
could use it. There was a bunch of other stuff that we did. Jake pulled the razor blades out of his mouth, right? I don't know if you saw that one. Like he literally pulled razor blades out of his mouth.
Oh, wow.
Cut his whole mouth up, but he got
Oh,
them
jeez.
out. I'm like, okay. Like, so there's always a magic trick in everything that we do. And then slowly I started understanding, like, this is what it is, right? The crowd is so engaged with it. They absolutely love it. Like, lucha is very entertaining because of the high flying aspect of it. And American style wrestling is so entertaining because of the really heavy plotted storylines, right? I'm like, it's two different types of entertainment.
Yep.
But when you've been doing lucha for 8 years straight, it's hard, right? So I tell people all the time, I wish I would have learned American style wrestling before I learned high flying lucha libre, right? Because I always want to go fast and I have to slow down. But even when I'm going slow, I'm not going slow enough. So now I actually go slow. So when I go to Mexico, the girls are like, you got to go faster. You got to go faster. Miranda Alizé is the perfect example. She's like, I'm supposed to be this fast. I'm like, I know. I can't do it anymore. She's so great and she's so fast. But she does that high flying lucha, the super fast pace where you do 3 matches in 5 minutes. Like, that's what it is. So yeah, jazz definitely has helped me out a lot. That was the advice she gave me. She was like, sit back, see where it goes. She's like, there's longevity in storylines at NWA, and that's what you have to learn. You have to learn the longevity of the, because at the time I was just so used to like the quick storylines, right? So yeah. And she also told me that Trish Stratus
Oh, sorry, keep going. I was trying to say something. I forgot what I was going to say.
So she also taught me that Trish Stratus, when she first started wrestling, whenever she'd throw forearms, she would call them flippers because she couldn't remember to throw forearms.
Jeez,
flippers. But she could remember flippers.
Jeez, Canadians. So,
right?
Yeah, that's hilarious. So, in closing, if my fans want to follow you on social media, how can they find you?
They can find me on Christi Jaynes, ChristiJaynes, and that's like everything. That's X. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X. On Threads, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. Facebook's a bottomless pit, though. So yeah, I mostly stick to IG and to X. So, and TikTok. So, yeah, you guys
I have the
totally
TikTok
go
too.
follow me there. Yeah.
If my
Come out
fans
to the
would like
NWA. You guys can see me here.
if my fans would like to purchase anything, any like merch or anything of yours, where can they find it?
So I actually have a big cartel store. It has been closed for like 6 months. I am getting new merch on February 17th. So it will be up and running on February 17th. I do on my little highlights on my IG. I have first I have my link tree, and it'll take you to like my big cartel on there. But I also have a link to my big cartel in my highlights, so you can just go there and click it and go buy it. But yeah, February 17th is where I get all new merch. So
awesome. My last question for you: if there was any kids watching the show, hello everybody. And if they wanted to get into the wrestling business like yourself, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would tell them to stay in school and not get into it until they've graduated. I know some other people would give some different advice, but I would not. Wrestling is not 100% guaranteed. 1 out of 500 people make it. Even if you go to WWE, they pay you like $36,000 a year starting. So that's like flipping hamburgers at McDonald's, right? Your education is really important. And I know people say, oh, people are making so much money without a degree. And it's like very few people are. And if they are making money, they're not making a whole lot of money, or they're that, 0.01%. Definitely make sure that you can devote your whole time to it. Because that's the only way you're going to get traction and movement. You have to be in it 100% and get a really thick skin and get a really, really great trainer that's going to make you do your basics, like drill it into your head even when you don't want to.
Christi, I want to thank you so much.
And get really good insurance.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to need it. Christi, I want to thank you so much for taking my opportunity to come on the podcast. I would love to have you back on in the future episodes so you can update me and tell you how much more fun you're having with the NWA and all the stuff you're doing. I'm Joe Panther the Third.
I'm Christi Jaynes.
And we will catch you in the next one. Have a good night, everybody.